Good evening. As we draw towards All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, as it has become known all over the world, I thought it would be appropriate to tell a true tale of a place I have visited often, called Ixon Moat in Kent. I am a great lover of history and all that goes with it, and am fortunate to live near many historic palaces and ancient buildings. Many buildings, of course, you know the ghost stories. You know, for instance, about Hampton Court by the River Thames. Another place I know very, very well. And I've indeed met, through my decades of travel, the past owners who have lived there. I have spent time with them, especially during the winter months, when all the visitors and the tourists have left. The doors, the giant doors, are locked and bolted. And we have sat, many of us, now gone between the mists of life and death, and discussed our adventures. But this year, as we all draw together for our own Halloween, All Hallows Eve meet, of which you know nothing, you who do not see beyond the veil. This year, I have met up with one of my very favourite ladies. She does not reside within Hampton Court. She resides at Ixon Moat in Kent. Ixon Moat was built in 1340 AD. And on a sunny, sunny day, when you visit, you living creatures, when you visit on a sunny, sunny day, you see a pretty, pretty, pretty building. But it has its secrets, as do many. As I say, on a pretty sunny day, Ixon Moat is pretty, pretty, pretty. But it is indeed, within England, the oldest country home, not palace, home to the Selby family. An interesting and motley crew. But I digress, because there are many tales. And indeed, author, going way back to the early part of the 20th century, wrote an absolutely fascinating love story called The Green Darkness. Her name was Anya Seton, and she could feel much more than many of you can feel about what lies beyond the grey veil of life. And she knew the histories because she was interested in them. She didn't twitter about like a tourist, touching the antique furniture when the caretaker wasn't looking. She didn't count her pennies, clutch her heritage card or a National Trust card. No offense, of course. She didn't trust, she just knew the place because it was still lived in. Then, and as I say, she wrote about one of the very famous ghosts, as you call them, that still visits, poor soul, many centuries on. And obviously, as All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, as you call it, approaches, she visits in the hope of redemption, perhaps, of being understood. Definitely. So I might tell you a little bit about her, if you wish. So forgive me if I keep repeating myself. I have been around a long time, and the memory sometimes wanders when one knows so many, has met so many. As I say, Ixmote is the oldest manor house, built as it once was, then in the 1300s, that exists in England, near Sevenoaks in Kent, and was, as I said, and forgive me again if I bore you so, it was then that the Selby family first moved in. The Selby family resided at Ixmote until the 19th century. Tales of daring do and medieval knights abound, and has many owners since then. Now, of course, it is as like a museum where people visit. And why not? It is indeed beautiful. Is it not? One can't lie. It does have the reputation of being the most beautiful piece of architecture in British history to this day. So we want to keep it there, don't we? And so does the Grey Lady. Obviously. Anyway, without any further ado, let me tell you a little about my friend, the Grey Lady. The question still is, who exactly was she? She is believed to have been somebody called, now, let me think how my old grey cells, well, I don't really have any, obviously, but the dust still retains its memories. Naturally. or unnaturally. The surprise here is that actually there are two possible grey ladies. For me, I believe the most reliable one, and the one I know best, dates back. Forgive me for a moment, a wee slip of the brain dust there. Yes, the one that means the most to me, if you like, upon the Grey Lady, myths and legends, is the one I've met most frequently, and dates back to 1552, when a Sir Thomas Brown resided there with his family. He was a staunch follower of the monarchy and fairly self-made, if you like, and wanted to move on within the king's circles, which was in those days the only way to gain any kind of power and money. And obviously he had his own little empire within Ixthammote in his Manor House. He had the people that tended to his many lands, the farms, the dairies, etc. And obviously many servants for his family. The one I remember the most, and the one I do consider to be the Grey Lady, because we chat the most often, and occasionally on All Hallows Eve or Halloween, instead of anywhere else, we meet and wander through the dark, misty meadows of Ixthammote, where she grew up, where she worked. And she always recites her tale. She is then there and returns there in search of her love. For most manor houses, as many of you will know, they have within their grounds their own family chapel, which also can be attended by the upper members of the servants' quarters. She was a young, illiterate girl, not terribly bright, but kind and generous and warm of heart and lonely. And the priest was a young, handsome man who tried to help her. Well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say yes, he did. He tried to help her in her way of understanding her religion and reading the Bible to her. And as the days progressed, and they sat within the glow of a candle within the chapel, her beauty would shine from within, because she was indeed a most kind lady, girl really, probably late teens, from what she tells me as we wander. And of course, being young and impressionable, and him being a fine, strapping, handsome young man, regardless that he had taken a vow of celibacy, she fell in love with him, and she hid her love as much as she could. But of course, he was a young man. Regardless of faith, he still had a tremendous faith. Let's not take that away from him. But as he read to her, The glow of the candle would hit the beauty on her face, the sheen on her auburn gold tresses, and he too, air quotes, fell in love, air quotes. Pardon my cynicism. I must apologize to her when I see her later this evening, because I know she believes it to be love. But love, as love goes, means people meet furtively, quietly and alone wherever possible. And in a busy place such as Ictham Moat, it's not possible to do so. So it would be under the cover of darkness, quietly, with the odd hoot of an owl in the distance. But I go digress perhaps slightly, and she and he, as I say, grew to love each other, and out of that union, a child was within her. She kept it as secret as she could from him, and most definitely from her lord and masters and mistresses for whom she worked, because in those days a young girl unmarried and pregnant would be cast out. It was a common occurrence, sadly, tragically. Eventually, of course, she started to show her pregnancy, and she had to tell the young priest. The young priest was absolutely beside himself because he had massive ambition within this family because of their connections with the local nobility and potentially the monarchy and its environs, to achieve and to grow within his own church role and become something memorable. So he rejected her. She came back, and back again, begging on her knees for him to love her again, for him to take her back. He would not, as she tells me. To this day, she will not tell me exactly what happened. Suffice to say, the poor thing was murdered and bricked up within the walls of the great hall of Ictham Moat. Now I hear you cry, surely not, surely not. How can that be? Well, they bricked her in so deep. Dear listener, they could not hear her small hands battering against the brickwork, and they put a cloth across her mouth so her screams could not be heard. And gradually the moans and the battering of her little fingers and hands against the brickwork faded away within that brick coffin. And so she and her unborn baby perished. So she walks amongst the grounds of Ictham Moat, looking for her lost loves. Lost love. Well, obviously she was in love with the priest, but terribly betrayed. And I feel she is looking for her unborn child. I fear she hears its cries, or at least that's what she tells me. So, if you should ever visit Ictham Moat, take a moment in the great hall. It is there, the area. Obviously, it's been renovated since that gruesome discovery, because discovered she was, or rather her bones What was left of them were discovered when they were renovating. Many years later they were found and laid to rest. Spare a thought when you go in the great hall of Ictham Moat and you wander around. Take a moment and remember, she is around you. She walks, and she's waiting for her love to be reunited with them, her baby, and possibly that priest. What became of that priest, I do not know or care, but spare a thought for the grey lady who wanders through the grounds of Ictham Moat. Sometimes she is low and sad, sometimes her fury is absolutely astronomical. I will leave it there, dear listener, should you still be with me, and wish you an All Hallows Eve, or a happy Halloween as you call it these days. And I will show you the grey lady of whom I speak. Take care. Go safely.